Imagine waking up one morning to headlines screaming that $54 billion in market value is about to evaporate. Not from just any company, but from a sector that many believe holds the key to our future: artificial intelligence. At the very center of this storm is a name you definitely know: Nvidia, and the force driving this turbulence: the escalating friction between the world's two largest economies. This isn't just a business story, it's a glimpse into a future that might be closer than we think. Let's set the scene. It's late 2025. Whispers turn into reports that the US administration is thinking about a major policy shift. They're considering allowing China limited, conditional access to some of the most advanced AI chips on the planet, including Nvidia's powerhouse, the H200 processor. Almost immediately, China signals immense interest. We're not talking about a small order here. Discussions begin for a massive, large-scale deal. How large? Estimates put the potential value as high as a staggering $54 billion. Think about that number for a second. It's more than the entire GDP of some countries. Naturally, the markets love this news. Stock tickers flash green, and a wave of optimism sweeps through the financial world. It looks like a win-win, but here's the catch: the deal comes with some very strict, very heavy conditions. This is where the story takes a sharp turn. According to industry analysts who were close to the talks, the US laid down a crucial requirement. Before any of these advanced H200 chips could land in China, they first had to pass through American territory for rigorous security inspections. On top of that, there were discussions about adding extra compliance costs and even national security fees to the final price tag. For the US, this was about safeguarding technology and national security. But for Beijing, these conditions set off major alarm bells. This wasn't just about extra costs or delays. It touched a raw nerve, raising serious questions about national sovereignty and the risk of becoming permanently dependent on a strategic rival for critical technology. The optimism from the initial announcement began to fade, replaced by a tense, uncertain silence. By the middle of January 2026, the silence is broken, but not by good news. Reports start trickling in from multiple sources deep within the global supply chain. They all say the same thing: delays. Administrative slowdowns are suddenly affecting shipments of the H200 chips. Major shipping ports that are usually models of efficiency start experiencing unusual congestion. Back at the manufacturing plants, some production lines are forced to pause. The ripple effect is immediate. A cloud of uncertainty spreads like wildfire, first among the smaller component suppliers, then to the logistics companies, and finally to the investors on Wall Street. So what happened to the $50 billion deal? Officially, it was never canceled. No one made a big announcement. But in reality, it was effectively frozen in place. The gears of global commerce had ground to a halt. Now, China's response to this situation was fascinating. There were no loud, public threats, no dramatic ultimatums. Instead, Beijing accelerated a different, much quieter strategy. We started seeing major Chinese tech giants companies with massive resources begin to pivot. They systematically increased their reliance on domestically produced AI alternatives. One name in particular kept coming up: Huawei's Ascend 910C chip. While not a direct one-for-one replacement for Nvidia's top-tier chip at the time, it was a powerful statement. The message, though subtle, was crystal clear: China was choosing diversification over dependence. If the global supply chain was going to be used as a political lever, they would build their own. This wasn't just a backup plan. It was the beginning of a long-term strategic shift to insulate their tech ambitions from outside pressure. The market impact of this quiet pivot was immediate and palpable. Investors, who just weeks before were celebrating the potential $50 billion deal, reacted with extreme caution. The reason is simple arithmetic: China isn't just another market for a company like Nvidia. It's a cornerstone of their business, representing an estimated 20 to 25% of their total global revenue. Any prolonged disruption or restriction on sales to China doesn't just mean a missed opportunity for a big deal. It translates directly into billions of dollars in lost annual revenue year after year. The stock market, which thrives on certainty, was now facing a massive question mark hanging over one of its brightest stars. The Big Freeze wasn't just a political headline. It was a direct threat to the bottom line of one of the world's most important companies. But the chess game didn't stop there. As the US applied pressure, the technology front, China began to gently remind the world of its own leverage. It started emphasizing its dominant control over the supply of critical raw materials, specifically to elements you might not hear about every day but are absolutely essential for modern electronics: gallium and germanium. These are fundamental components in the manufacturing of high-performance semiconductors, the very chips at the heart of this conflict. So you have this incredible dynamic playing out on a global scale. Technology pressure being applied on one side and resource leverage being asserted on the other, and caught right in the middle? The rest of the world and the entire global technology ecosystem that had been built on decades of cooperation. It was becoming clear this wasn't just a temporary disagreement. This is the point where major financial institutions started to sound the alarm. Morgan Stanley, among others, began publishing reports warning their clients that 2026 might be remembered as a historic turning point. They weren't predicting a total collapse of the global tech industry, nothing that dramatic. Instead, they described something perhaps more profound: a great fragmentation. The beginning of a split into two distinct, parallel technology ecosystems. On one side, a US-led tech sphere with its own set of allies, standards, and supply chains. And on the other, a China-centered alternative, developing its own technologies, its own rules, and its own network of partners. Each system would have its own unique costs, its own innovations, and its own path forward. The idea of a single, unified global tech market was starting to look like a relic of a bygone era. What's really interesting is that this concern isn't just coming from Wall Street analysts. The debate is happening right inside Silicon Valley itself. Nvidia's own CEO, Jensen Huang, has publicly cautioned against the long-term consequences of overly restrictive policies. His argument is that being too aggressive in cutting off China could eventually backfire and hurt American innovation. Why? Because China isn't just a massive market for finished products. It remains a critical, deeply integrated part of the global manufacturing supply chain. It's where countless components are made, where complex products are assembled, and where some of the most advanced product testing takes place. Trying to completely decouple, he suggests, is not only incredibly complex and expensive, but could also isolate the US from a vital part of the innovation cycle, ultimately slowing its own progress. So, where does this leave us? What we're witnessing may not be a short-term crisis that will eventually blow over. It might be something far more significant. It could be the end of one era of globalization and the very beginning of another. An era defined by a fragmented tech world, a divided internet, where data and services don't flow freely across borders, and a world where companies, big and small, are increasingly forced to choose sides in a new kind of technological Cold War. And in the middle of it all, one single piece of silicon, Nvidia's H200 chip, has become the unwilling symbol of this monumental shift. It as a reminder that the future of technology is no longer just about faster speeds and more memory. It's now deeply entangled with geopolitics, national identity, and the very structure of our global economy. If this is your first time visiting our channel, we specialize in breaking down the complex forces shaping the global economy, often before they make the mainstream headlines. We believe that understanding these shifts is key to navigating the future. If you want to stay one step ahead, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.